Hi, so you want to do your best to live the most eco-friendly life that you can and do what you can to protect the natural environment and enjoy your best health and generally feel good about the way that you live. And last week I was talking with you about James Clear and his new book Atomic Habits and how you can make your home more of a supportive environment to help you create and maintain the habits that you've decided that you want to have. And today I'm going to go through 5 eco-friendly habits that you may wish to take on and add into your life so that you are doing your bit for the environment and protecting the planet and making your life healthier and more enjoyable as a result. So the first of these is to recycle more. So England recycles about 42.4% of waste and Wales recycles 62%. So, you know, just there, if a small country like Wales can recycle so much more, English have got to step up the game and come on, you know, like if the Rugby World Cup and football is anything to go by, then, you know, there's a bit of a rivalry there and England should definitely be going for it and doing as best they can to beat Wales at this whole recycling game. So what can we do to do this? Obviously you can buy less stuff, especially less stuff with packaging, so just make it easier to, you're not actually creating as much waste in the first place. But once you've got the stuff into your home and you've got waste to deal with, how can you make your environment, make your home, make it easier for you to recycle instead of just throwing out your rubbish into general waste? So you need to look at where is it in your home that you generally create the most waste. And I would say for most people that tends to be the kitchen. Maybe your bedroom or your bathroom, maybe you've got a home office, you might also create a lot of paper waste perhaps. So look in your home, consider where it is that you create the most waste, and then look at ways that you can make it easier to recycle in those places than it is to just chuck it in the bin. And what you can do to do that is to make sure that you've got enough recycling bins and that they're big enough for the amount of waste that you need to recycle, and that they're easy to access. They're as close as possible to where it is that you would normally create waste. So perhaps in the kitchen, some like under counter cupboard that you can just pull out. The bin lid just flips up, you don't even have to open the bin at all, and it's right next to where you would normally say unpackage veg or whatever, and so that you can immediately separate the waste into the separate recycling containers so that it's already separated and ready to recycle and go. And then put your general waste bin a little bit further away, so it's a little bit more effort to just put your rubbish into your standard waste. And doing these small things will just make it that little bit easier for you to recycle in comparison to just chucking it into general waste, and that will increase the amount that you recycle. In English homes in 2017 we recycled about 45.2%, and the target is for households to recycle 50% by 2020. So, you know, we've just got 1 year. You can make these tiny changes to your home, and that can help us as a nation to improve our recycling. The second habit that I wanted to look at was reducing food waste. Now, the average UK household wasted £470 worth of food in 2017. Now, not to mention the number of people who are struggling to eat and, you know, having to go to food banks to actually be able to get the food that they need to survive. That food is just food that's gone into the bin when it could have been eaten, and that's really sad. And all that wasted money, I mean, 470 quid, that's that's a decent chunk of money that you can do something really nice with. You don't really want to be chucking that into your bin. So this avoidable food waste created 19 million tonnes, I'll say that again, 19 million tonnes of greenhouse gases, and that is equivalent to taking 1 in every 4 cars off UK roads. I mean, it'd be great to have fewer cars on the roads because, you know, they're a pain in the neck, cars, to be honest, especially if you're a cyclist. And even if you're a driver, it would be nicer if there are not so many cars around and clogging up the streets. So yeah, it'd be great if we could drive less as well. But if you could just reduce the amount of food that you throw away, that will have a big impact on the pollution in the environment that we're creating. So I've got some counter intuitive ways that you could help. You could change your home, particularly your kitchen, because the kitchen is definitely where most people do their food preparation. I don't know about you, but that's certainly where I do mine. And what you can do is meal planning. So meal planning, deciding what you're going to eat for the week and only buying the food that you need and no more. So then you're not getting extra stuff that you don't need and that you're more likely to throw away in the bin. Also, check through your food cupboards, your fridge, your freezer, before you plan your week's meals, so that you're using the stuff that you already have as a priority and you're only buying food that supplements what you already have, so that you can make meals out of that and you're wasting the minimum amount possible. A counterintuitive thing that you can do is to actually have fewer kitchen cupboards and a smaller fridge freezer, so that you're not tempted to buy lots more stuff and fill up those cupboards and fill up the fridge and freezer with loads more stuff than you can really eat, and more difficult to actually get through. If you have actually less space, so you can't have as much food in the first place because there's nowhere to put it, then you're more likely to actually eat what you've got, and well, maybe in theory you may be more likely to eat what you've got, and then you're less likely to waste it. Another thing that you can do is make sure that it's really easy to see what you've got in your cupboards. So for example, if you're putting in a new kitchen, you could choose to go with pull-out drawers in your base unit, so that it's easier to see all the stuff that you've got at the back of the drawer. When you pull the drawer out, you can see more stuff at the back, rather than if you've got a cupboard and you've got things in the way, and all the things that are at the back tend to get forgotten about. You can't see them, out of sight, out of mind, and you're less likely to use them. But if you're using a drawer, you're more able to access everything that's in that drawer from the front to the back, and that's going to make it easier to access everything and more likely that you're going to use more of the stuff and things are not going to get pushed behind and forgotten about. Similarly, for wall cupboards, you can get sort of drop down shelves so that they stack up in front, and when you open it they can drop down. It makes it easier for you to access, especially if you're maybe not a very tall person. It'd be easier for you to get to shelves that are on the wall, but it also means that you can see stuff that's behind, so you can have like 2 layers of cans or whatever it is that you're storing in those cupboards, so that you can get to everything that's in there. Alternatively, you can just use shallower wall cabinets or shelves, so that there isn't as much depth for things to get lost in the back, or just don't fill them very much, so that you only have one row of things and you've not got stuff at the back. It's just what you can see. Yeah, so that was my thoughts on food waste. Don't buy as much, and the way that you store it. The third habit would be to use less water. So every day 3.3 billion, not million, billion litres of treated water, that's 20% of the nation's supply of treated water, are lost through leaks in England and Wales, and that is enough for the daily needs of 21.5 million people. On average, a household of 1 person uses about 149 litres of water per day, and 5 people use 523 litres. So you can summarize from that if you live in a house, more of a shared house, perhaps potentially you're less likely to use quite as much water per person. That's possible, you know, in terms of cleaning the space and the water that you might use to do that. But you know, straightforward things: get leaking taps fixed, get leaking pipes fixed, so that there's less waste happening there. The things that you can do are fit more eco fittings, so fittings that mix air with water so that it feels more powerful, but it's air in there that's adding the power, it's not so much the water. And you can do that with things like your kitchen tap, your wash hand basin, and your shower, where I'd say your shower is where you're going to feel that the most. You know, lots of people love to have a power shower. Power showers use so much water, not to mention all the energy that goes into heating up the water. So if you use an eco power shower where it's air rather than water that's creating that powerful sensation, you're not using as much energy to heat the water because there's not as much water. So it's a win-win situation really. You're using less water and you're using less energy, and it should save you quite a lot of money over a period of time. You can also put a timer on and use showers for much shorter periods of time, use showers instead of baths, and things like that. These are a lot of habits, but in terms of what you can do to physically make it easier to use less water, just changing the fittings for more eco-friendly options will help. You can also use, when you're looking at toilets use up a lot of water. You can fit a dual flush cistern, so that a smaller capacity system, and obviously I think most people know about the two different buttons. You can use one that uses less water when you press it, and the other one for when you need to flush down something, some more of what's in there. You can also, if you've just got an existing system, you don't have dual flush, and you don't want to go to the expense of changing the system that you've got. Your toilet and cistern are working fine for you, but it's an older cistern and it doesn't have that sort of water saving capacity. Then you can just pop in a kind of a cistern capacity, like an insert. They're like little bags full of water basically, and you pop that in and it just reduces the overall size of the cistern. So each time you're flushing, there's a bit less water going through, and so you're using less water overall. Make sure that you're running your dishwasher and your washing machine on full, not doing half loads or small or partial loads. So if you always run them on full, then overall you're going to be running them less often, and that will therefore use both less energy as well as using less water. And you can also look for more energy efficient versions of those appliances rather than just buying a standard one. Try and get one that is more efficient in its water use. And my final tip really, I mean there are lots more things that you can do, but a really easy thing that you can do is fit a water butt to your rainwater pipe and use that water to water the garden and to wash the car. So you're not using treated water and all of the effort and energy that goes into treating water. Instead, you're just using pure rainwater, and that actually tends to be much better, especially for plants. Plants prefer that to treated water, which does have some additives added to it, like chlorine. Fourth tip, fourth daily sort of eco habit that you might want to create for yourself at home is to use more natural and less toxic cleaning products. Now, there was a study in America in May of 2002, and it found contaminants in stream water, which included persistent detergent in 69% of the streams tested and disinfectants in 66%. Now, the toxic chemicals that you find in a lot of home cleaners, they're not only potentially harmful to you and your own health, but down the line they're much more likely to be harmful for wildlife, and in particular for marine wildlife. I mean, to drink tap water in the UK, it's one of the most regulated drinks that you can get. So it's actually very high quality, and it's even more. It can even be much better quality than many bottled waters, because bottled waters don't go through so much stringent regulation and testing as tap water does. So it, in terms of your health, from the point of view of toxic chemicals going into the water system and that coming back to you, if you're going to drink tap water, that's not likely to be a problem in the UK. In other places that's different, but certainly that's true in the UK. However, the chemicals, the buildup of the chemicals and the chemical cocktails that can be created, and the persistency of those chemicals, the length of time that they take to biodegrade, that can really have a build-up effect in sediment and in marine waters and streams that can have really bad damaging effects on especially things like fish. And there was recently, and I don't know exactly how truthful this is, because, you know, newspapers like the Daily Mail, how much can you believe what they say? But apparently spray cleaning products can be as bad for your lungs as smoking a packet of cigarettes a day. I mean, it's so thinking about how you're applying that product is also potentially going to have an effect on you and your health. So to avoid a chemical cocktail and to minimize the sort of toxicity of the chemicals that you're using at home, then some of the things that you can do are to use really the simplest cleaning products that you can find, and try and use fewer types of cleaning products, and perhaps, if you can, stick to one main general all-purpose cleaner that you clean everything or as close to everything with, so that you're less likely to be getting a sort of a really more of a toxic chemical cocktail that's a mix of lots of different cleaning products. And it's just using one, because the thing is that cleaning products, they are regulated and they are tested, and you know, yes, there's toxicity, there's hazard, and there's the amount of risk that's involved in them. So it can come down to the amount that you use it. It's not just a case of the stuff that you use. If you're using a cleaning product within the regulated kind of advised method of use, then the chances of it being a high risk for you are very, very low, because it will have been tested and regulated to meet limits. But if you're using a huge amount of cleaning products, doing a lot of cleaning, or using lots of different ones where there's lots of different chemicals, and the mix of those could be potentially more toxic because that's not being tested, that's where you need to start to be careful. And some of the chemicals that are found in cleaning products can mimic estrogen, and there are scientific studies that suggest that this may be harming the reproduction of fish, and it also may be linked to breast cancer. So some of the things that you can do are to home make cleaning products based on safer ingredients like vinegar or lemon juice and baking soda. But if you're buying new cleaning products, then check for labels that say something like it's biodegradable within 2 to 5 days, rather than just it's biodegradable, because ultimately almost everything is biodegradable. But if it takes 100 years to biodegrade, that's not exactly in the sort of the spirit of what we're looking for. You want something that's going to biodegrade very quickly, so that it's not going to build up and going to have more of a toxic effect. Also look for things like no solvents, no phosphates, and you want things to be more plant-based. So something like eco-friendly or natural, it's a bit of a wishy-washy term, and it's not really sort of regulated term. So if it just says it's eco-friendly or it just says it's natural, then that's not necessarily a good reason to buy that product. And then finally, just choose plant-based over petroleum-based. And we all know petroleum, it's a non-renewable resource, and it creates a lot of knock-on effects using it. So if you can avoid petroleum-based products, that is going to have a lot of positive knock-on effects. Finally, when you're talking about how you can make your home support that habit, then I found it quite difficult actually to figure out some ways that you could do that. I mean, obviously, apart from just minimizing your cleaning product collection and having like a really minimal, just one kind of bottle if possible, and preferably something that's homemade and not using really toxic ingredients, then just having that one to hand and not having other ones available. But what you could do is if you're doing work to your home and you're getting new finishes, new kitchen worktops, new kitchen cupboards, new flooring, and so on, maybe new splashback, then you can choose materials that don't have any specialist cleaning requirements, so that they're easy to keep clean and you can use less toxic chemicals and products to keep them clean. You don't have to buy something that's very specialist and contains, say, a lot of solvents or something like that. And that was the only real thing that I could come up with. If you've got any other ideas what you might be able to do to make it possible for you to use less chemical products and toxic cleaning products in your home, bob your ideas down in the comments below. I'd be interested to know if you've got any thoughts on that. And the fifth, I feel like I've missed a page here, but the fifth, yeah, that's it. The fifth and final eco habit that I was going to talk about today is to reduce plastics and petrochemicals. So plastic, as I think everybody's fully aware, I mean, if you watch Blue Planet or if you've seen that poor turtle, struggling to breathe with a plastic straw stuck up its nose, I mean, a lot of people are now aware of the dangers of plastic, especially to marine wildlife, but to all sorts of wildlife, and the length of time that it takes to biodegrade. And for example, every single plastic toothbrush that has ever been made is still around. None of them have gone yet. They will not biodegrade for many, many, many more decades to come. So I don't know how often you change your toothbrush, but if you think of how many toothbrushes you've had in your lifetime and then multiply that by all the people that there are, you can imagine that there are a lot of toothbrushes around. And so, you can change to using sort of maybe like a bamboo toothbrush or something like that to reduce the amount of plastics there. But in general, if try and buy things that have got less plastics in the product itself, but also less packaging, and particularly if you choose cardboard or glass or metal, things that are more easily recycled rather than plastic packaged goods. When you're looking at how you can make your home get your home to help support you in making that change and tending to avoid plastics and petrochemicals, again, it's not that easy to do it, but there are some ways that you can do that. So firstly, you can, if you're choosing to have a house extension, you can select building materials that don't contain petrochemicals. For example, for your insulation, you could go with something like a wool or a wood fibre or a cellulose, which is made usually out of recycled newspapers. So you could use those for insulation instead of things like expanded polystyrene. And you can choose finishes that aren't plastic. So for example, for your floor, instead of going for a vinyl, which, okay, that might be the cheapest floor finish, but it is a plastic. And instead of that, you can go for something equally robust and durable, and actually probably, in my opinion, more beautiful. And yes, okay, you might pay a little bit more for it, but potentially it could last longer and it's going to be a lot less harmful. So something maybe to take into consideration if you're concerned about the harm that we're doing to the environment. So you could choose something like a tile or a wood, or perhaps rubber flooring if you want something that's similar to a vinyl but isn't actually vinyl. And then perhaps instead of an acrylic based carpet, go for wools and more natural products. For things like your furniture, go for more of a solid wood. It doesn't have to cost you more. You don't have to buy brand new. You can buy secondhand furniture and it can be much better quality. Rather than getting something that's like a chipboard and that's faced in a melamine, which melamine is also plastic. So instead of that, you can go for a wood instead. And finally, what you can do, and this is something that the building industry is moving towards, it's a slow process and it's quite difficult to achieve because plastics they have a lot of really useful properties and it is a really great material. It's just that its after use lifespan is so long and the ability to recycle it is so difficult, and that's why it's not really the best material for us to be using, and we should be looking at alternatives, and we've got so many alternatives, we don't need to use plastic. But one of the things that you can do is to find out what your building materials are going to be packaged in, and ask for, if things are going to be delivered to site, ask for them not to be wrapped up in plastic, because often they'll wrap up a whole pallet of stuff and they'll use tons of plastic to wrap it all up. You don't need that plastic really. I mean, yes, on site the plastic can be useful, it can protect the products from rain, and it is a tricky one to get around. But if you've got somewhere that you can store things, so if you, as soon as a delivery is made, you can take that delivery and put it inside where it's safe from harm from rain and it's protected, then do that rather than get it wrapped in plastic. And before you order your building materials, check what the packaging is and ask, is it plastic? The more people ask and the more people request for products not to be wrapped in plastic and not to be packaged in plastic, then the more manufacturers will listen and they will start to change the way that they use plastics and change the way that they deliver building materials and what materials they wrap those building materials up in. Lots of building product suppliers and manufacturers are starting to make these changes and they're aware of this. But it's, the construction industry is quite a slow moving beast, and plastic has got such great properties from the point of view of protection from the elements, and building sites are vulnerable to rain. So if you are planning some sort of big amount of work in your home, then think about those things, because that can make a really big difference to the amount of waste that your site produces and the amount of waste that is just going to go to landfill, not be reused. It is possible to set up recycling systems for waste on a project, but the smaller your home extension or your home project is, the more difficult that is to do and the less cost effective it is to do it. And so, but it's going to save you money to have less waste, because you're going to have less skips to deal with, and skips are not that cheap. So if you can minimize the amount of waste that you create, reuse it somehow on site, and there are lots of really clever things that you can do with waste in a construction site where you're not just throwing it away, then these things can all add up and will all in their small way protect the planet. Now, I have a really I like watching YouTube videos, and there's a really good YouTuber called Shell Bizzle, and she has a brilliant saying, and she says, you cannot do all the good that the earth needs, but the earth needs you to do all the good that you can do. And I think that's a brilliant thing. If we all do our little bit, in total it will all add up and we will all benefit as a result of it. So that's what I wanted to finish on. If you have any comments or any questions, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I will respond and do my best to respond to everything. If you're watching the replay, put in #replay, and I look forward to seeing you again next Friday. I've got another 5 eco-friendly habits that I will look at and do a bit of research into for you, and think up different ways that you can manage your home, design your home to help support creation of your better habits so that you can be that better person that you'd like to be. Okay, thanks for now. See you next week. Bye. Can't press finish.